Know me, I'm Robin Flint. I've been with Keller Williams for 3 years. I think this month is my 3-year anniversary. Yay. And previously sold for 5 years, mostly out of the Roanoke market with MKB Realtors. And in between, I left this wonderful career and decided to go to school and get an education, which I have 2 degrees on the wall behind me that mean nothing to me anymore. And I just came back to real estate with student loans. So if that tells you how smart I am and why I was crying the other day, then you'd understand that I just want to go fishing. So today what we're going to do is talk about making and receiving offers. And some of you I know have been in this as long, if not longer than I have, but it's always good to have a refresher. And if you're new, it's always good to realize that everybody might do things a little bit differently. So it's all in what works for you. So if I show you something that I do or say something that I do, don't take it as law. It's just what has worked for me, and I want to share it with you as we go through. So today we're going to aim for offers that win, and that's the title. But I wanted to add to that, with this market, you kind of also have to be, this market is different, and you kind of got to be prepared. You got to make your offers great, and you got to present them quick. So you got to be able to, you got to really be able to think on the spot. So having said that, that's what we're doing. We're making and receiving offers today. So expectations for the class. Our expectations today, let me get to my right page here. We are going to learn how to present offers when you represent a buyer. Well, let me stop there. When you represent a buyer, you know what's your goal: to get them in the best house possible that meets their needs at the lowest price possible, or at the best deal possible. And when you represent a seller, it's important to know how to receive offers, because at that point, if you're representing a seller, then it's your job to get them the best deal for their house at the best price possible, which sometimes is completely opposite of what a buyer is actually offering. There are scripts that you can use to practice. I'm not sure that we'll actually practice those scripts today. I'll leave it up to you. And then we are going to learn how to set the stage for a positive negotiation. One of the things that I have realized in this business is that you're going to work with some skilled agents. They're with all different companies, not just Keller Williams. And you're going to work with some unskilled agents with all companies, okay? And so the way that you can set the stage for a positive negotiation is to remember that everybody should have the same goal in mind, which is to make every deal a win-win. And I'm sure you've heard that before with Keller Williams. So not only are you representing your client's best interest, but you also want it to be a positive experience for the customer or client on the other end of the deal as well. And at that point, you're also working to establish some positive relationships with the other agents that you're working with. And remember, it's generally speaking, it is not personal. I'm sure there might be some agents that you just don't see eye to eye with out there. But when you're working a deal, and if things come across as being not so friendly, it's not personal. This is business, and this is the largest investment likely that this person is getting ready to make. So it should not be entered into lightly or taken lightly. They've chosen you to represent them in this endeavor, and so it's an honor and should be treated as such. So now that we've talked about our expectations, are there any questions about what we're going to talk about today before we get started? I can't see all of you, so hold on, let me see if I can. Hey everybody, I can see some faces now. Okay, so we are going to look over our mission for the day. Did everybody, I know everybody did their mission tasks before they got here today? Is that right? Because I know we have amazing students in this class right now. Did everybody do their 10-4 daily? No? It's so quiet, it's like crickets up in here, y'all. I hear more noise when I'm teaching licensing classes for people who have no clue. So y'all got to talk to me, okay? Did anybody preview any homes that they want to share about? Nobody's previewing homes and nobody's doing their 10-4.
What if you showed a home? Does that count?
Sure, that would count.
Yeah, yeah. So I showed a home in Rustburg, which is not my forte. But we started in Huddleston. He didn't like it. So by Sunday morning, he found a place in Rustburg, and I got a Lynchburg agent send me the listing, and we got in. It was vacant, and he really, really liked it. First time buyer, okay, that does not believe the market is as aggressive as it is, which we're all seeing. You know, they either just decide not to see it because there's other offers. This is what I'm having trouble with. Or they're new and they're still scared, you know, and I told him, you know, I understand it's going to be exciting and nervous, but this is what's happening right now. And so then he didn't want to put a full price offer. I said, well, I'm telling you, it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he kicked himself the next day. So now we're trying to find a house in Campbell County that fits that one he was in love with. So,
okay.
So there's my story.
So you gave a kind of a lesson in the market, because I've had experience doing that as well with people who come in and say, no, I'm still looking for a deal. And no matter what you tell people, sometimes they don't want to hear what you have to say, and they think, well, I'm still going to make, you know, and then they lose out, and then they're like, oh man, I should have listened. So anyway, anybody else have anything you want to share? Any good houses out there? I wish there was good houses out there. Nope. Okay. All right. So we're not going to practice scripts right now with a partner. I was not in your previous session, so I don't know what your action points were for the previous session. Did everybody, though, complete their activities from the previous session? Okay. Is everybody growing their database? Is it always as quiet? Is it just me? Do I need to dance, sing?
No, it takes about an hour for us to warm up. So if you could get that warm up faster. Yeah.
Come on now. Because then if you tell me you didn't do these things, then I have to go into my lecture about why you need to do these things. Does anybody want to hear my lecture? So
we can take a lecture and a dance if you want to, Robin.
Yeah.
I don't know that you. Yeah. I don't know that you want to see me dance. I mean, I could bust a move if you want me to.
You got it.
But my lecture will be, we're going to talk about how to turn leads into contracts today. And if you haven't generated the leads, how are you going to generate the contracts and the offers? So part of that is doing your lead gen. I'm going to say, you know, Keller Williams taught me from the get-go that you do anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of lead gen a day, that you start your day, you know, with some sort of whatever it takes you to get up and get in the mood, because contacting people sometimes can be nauseating if you don't like that. And I'm one of those that it was nauseating for. I don't like lead gen. That's not my favorite part of the job description. But without it, then you're less likely to hit your goals, your targets and your goals sales wise, if you're not generating enough leads and not adding to your database on a regular basis, and you're not following up with those people. So if you have not yet, and whether you're a seasoned realtor or a new realtor, if you have not yet established a routine to where you're building your database every day in some way, shape, or form, or reaching out to your database every day in some way, shape, or form, then I would highly encourage you to stop and pencil it into your calendar. One of the other best lessons, and I'm going to get off my soapbox after this, but the other lesson that I have learned, and you're thinking, I don't have time for that, especially in this market. And the answer is, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you don't in this market, because we don't have enough sellers out there right now. And the way that we find sellers is by lead gen. And by asking, have you ever thought of selling your home? Are you interested? Do you know anybody that's going to sell your home? How are we going to increase our listings if we don't do lead gen? So you're doing people a favor because some people, they might know you're a realtor. I had a girl reach out to me. Sorry, I'm chasing another rabbit. I had a lady call me yesterday. We've been friends for a long time. She reached out to me. She was going to sell her home for sale by owner to a family member, and it didn't work out. So she reached out and said, I need you to come. I need you to list this house. And I need it listed like ASAP. So tomorrow I'm going to list this house. Well, she's somebody who I had previously spoken with about listing this property. And she said, nah, I think I might have a family member. But I kept up with her and I would ask her, how's it going? Or, you know, how's your family? Or she posts pictures on Facebook or something and I'd comment on them or whatever. But when it came time and the family member backed out of the deal, she knew who to call right away. So that's part, in my view, that's part of lead gen, is keeping up with people on a regular basis. So if you're not doing it, you need to schedule time to do it because you're not doing yourself any favors by not doing it. And if you put it on your calendar, here's where I was originally going with this. If it's not on your calendar, it doesn't happen. You've got to prioritize and time block your calendar. So if every day you say from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm going to lead gen, and you write it on your calendar, then don't schedule anything else from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. or to 10 a.m. Now, I will say that sometimes a lot of people are at work 8 to 10. So I found that that wasn't always the best time for me personally and the people I knew to lead gen. If you want to catch them when they're at home, then maybe try and schedule an hour or two in the evening time or lunchtime during their lunch break or something and do some lead gen. So just get creative with it. Okay, enough of my soapbox. I will hop off. All right, did anybody send any note cards this week? No note cards? It doesn't have to be just a note card that you put in the mail, but I would also consider sending, even an email, but if you're doing that, you got to make it personal. In a note card, it's great if you do handwritten note cards. Keep up with your clients when there's a birthday, et cetera, when there's a death in the family or an illness. Right now, everybody is worried to death about illness, and a lot of people have illness. Handwritten note cards thinking of you. Is there anything I can do for your family? Or, if they've lost their job, how can I help? Anything that you can do to show that you personally are invested with them as clients, as customers, as friends, as whatever, then that's what you should be doing. Every week you should sit down, if not every day, at least every week, to do handwritten note cards, email check-ins, phone calls, whatever. All right, is anybody practicing their scripts? With yourself, with somebody else, with your kid, with your next door neighbor? If you don't already have one of the things that we did was we had a partner. So if you have a friend that will run them with you, 10 minutes a day, do it over the phone. Just schedule time, say twice a week at 9:30, from 9:30 to 9:45, one of us is going to call the other one and we're going to run scripts together. It's a great way to practice. You don't have to be face-to-face looking at each other and feeling embarrassed about it, but you're on the phone actually doing it. So I would recommend trying it. Any questions there? I don't think we have any videos to watch with this unit today. Were there any videos you guys were supposed to watch during the week? No? Okay. Then I won't harp on that either. Okay. So your daily 10-4. You should be adding 10 new contacts to your database every day. You should be speaking with 10 people in your database every day. And you should be sending out 10 notes every day. Weekly, you should preview 10 homes. Unfortunately, in this market, I don't think there's enough homes to support that at this point. You could do 10 homes in a day and be done for the month the way things are going. I mean, seriously. But you should be previewing. If you have a client who you think might be interested in a particular house and you have nothing to do, go out and preview it for them and then call them and go, hey, I went and looked at this house. If you want it, you got to jump on it today. And have them be prepared. If it is exactly what they're looking for, be prepared to jump if they like it. So that's your daily 10-4 that I swear by. You've got to do these things, or you're just, if you're sitting there wondering, where's business? How come everybody's talking about being so successful and I'm sitting here twiddling my thumbs? If you're not adding to your database, you're not reaching out, and you're not making phone calls, that's why. All right, turn to page 8. We're not going to do this, so never mind. Or do you want to do this right now? Does anybody want to make calls off your call list?
No.
Okay. Does anybody else except me find that very scary for some reason? Like calling people saying, hey, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell a house? I need,
Yes.
okay, so I'm the same way. And it's all, one of the things that I've learned is it's all a mental thing. If you call them for something else first and then something else slide that in, sometimes it makes things a little bit easier. Instead of just calling going, hey, I need to know, do you know anybody that really wants to buy or sell a house? You know, if you have, like, if somebody just graduated college, you have a friend whose kids just graduated college, call, say, congratulations, I hear Joey graduated. That is awesome. What's he going to do now? Where's he going to go? Does he have a job lined up? Oh, well, if he's in the mood and buying when he gets back, if he's looking to buy a house, give me a call. I'd be happy to help him. I really love working with first-time home buyers, and this is an exciting time in his life. And I think I can find him what he's looking for, something like that, or something to suit his needs, or whatever the case may be. So if you call with something else in mind and then just kind of ease right into it, it makes it a little bit easier. And you also have to think of it as yanking that Band-Aid off. Once you do it, the first, 5 calls, the last 5 of the day will be easier. And if they hang up on you, so what? Who's next? Now, the first time somebody hung up on me, I may have cried. The second time somebody hung up on me, I might have said a few choice words and called them a few names, but they were already hung up, so they didn't hear it, so it didn't count. But by the third time, I had grown numb, and it was just like, hey, I need people, and I'm really loving. Can you help me out here? And that didn't work either. So then I had to, really put the professionalism behind it, and really believe it with a passion in what my mission is. So you've got to know your one thing. If you know your one thing and you're passionate about it, it will come through in all of your conversations with your clients. And if they don't want to talk to you about it, maybe you caught them at a bad time. Maybe they've got one foot in the shower, one foot out. Maybe they've got one kid hanging around one ankle and the other one screaming. You don't know what's going on. So again, it may not be personal. Don't let it keep you from doing what you're supposed to be doing as a realtor. Next. You make sure I'm caught up where I need to be. All right. Y'all need to get your head in the game, don't we all? Some days, like when it's raining outside, you think, oh, this is a great day to do absolutely nothing but watch Netflix. Get your head in the game. Get your head in the game. You got to be better than the next. You got to prepare, and prepare. So let's talk about it. So let's talk about what an offer is. First, I have to move you all out of my line of vision so I can read. So an offer is the process of moving from a buyer or seller agreement to a sales agreement. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Arriving at the offer stage is an exciting and rewarding time for you and your client. There are many steps to take to prepare yourself and your client for making that offer. And that starts when you start the process, whether you're working with a buyer or whether you're working with a seller. From the moment you guys sit down and have that substantive discussion about a brokerage agreement and what they're looking for and getting them, pre-qualified, you are preparing them for the offer process. So in some of these notes, I want to make sure that you all get them. So I'm going to read them to you. So just ignore me if I'm reading. Okay. If you represent the buyer, your searching has paid off and your client has finally found their new home. That's what it means for an offer if you represent the buyer. Cha-ching, you found them, you did what they hired you to do, find them the best house for their family. Now, if you represent the seller, You have diligently marketed and prepared their property for sale and have received an offer from a prospective buyer. Chances are, though, in this market, you didn't really have to diligently market because the day you put it on the market, you had 6 offers by that evening. So just kind of depends on the market itself. So this is the point where for the first time, the buyer and the seller are coming together. This is a major financial decision and can be a highly emotional experience for both of them. Again, it is not personal. Your goal is to bring them together and arrive at a sales contract in which both parties win. As I said at the beginning, it's got to be a win-win for both sides. You should always strive to do your business that way. Win-win for everybody. As with every phase of the progression or in the progression, you need to work quickly and carefully during the offer process. And this session will prepare you to do just that. All right, let's see. All right, so here we have the diagram of the offer process. Now, as I said a little while ago, your leads are where you gain appointments. How is somebody going to know that you're a realtor if you don't tell them? So you should be telling everybody you know and everybody you come across that you're a realtor. I went and had my car. There was a recall on my new car already. And so I went and had my car done. I was dressed like a slug, but I had my business stuff in my business little case with me. And I forgot to grab my cell phone out of the car before they decided to drive it off and take it to the back. And I went running, wait, I need my cell phone. That's my business lifeline without my cell phone. She said, really, what do you do? I said, I am a realtor with Keller Williams. I work anywhere from Salem, Virginia, all the way to Appomattox, points north to, and you know, I went through the whole litany of stuff. And she's like, oh, really? I live in Bedford. And so this conversation started. When I leave a restaurant, sometimes if I have a good conversation with my wait staff, I will leave a card on the table with the tip, just so they know who I am if they need a buyer. When I go through Joe Bean, or if they need to buy or sell is what I meant to say. When I go through Joe Beans, you best be assured that if it's a new person working the window, I hand them my card. I have handed them, everybody at my Joe Beans has my card and knows where I'm from. When I come through, they actually now know my drink of choice and say, can I get you the usual, which I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's, my waistline says it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing. And my checkbook, my husband says, you're going to have to stop that. Anyway, that's another story. So your leads, these are all leads that even if they're not looking to buy or sell, maybe they know somebody who is in the future and they can pass your name off. And so these leads will generate appointments. Okay. From your appointments, that's where you enter into your agreements. Now, this could be your listing agreement, your buyer's agreement, exclusive right to represent, whatever brokerage agreement you all come to. And those agreements eventually, hopefully, lead into contracts. And that's where we are today. And we all know what contracts generally lead to: money, payday, closing, happy people, happy clients, referrals, return business. So there are 2 things that I pride myself on in business, and 2 things every agent should: return repeat customers, clients, and referrals from clients, because that means that they were extremely happy with the service you provided, enough so that they would use you again and they would refer you out to their family and friends. So that's the type of service that you should be providing to all of your contacts, that you should be putting into your command every day. Right, Shalaya? Command, use it. Okay. So just a little plug. So let's make the offer happen here. When a buyer has found the home they want to purchase, right now we're working with the buyer, by the way. We'll work with the seller in a few minutes. Right now, we're just going to work with the buyer. So when a buyer has found the home that they want to purchase and the seller is looking forward to concluding the sale of their property, the fun and magic begins, folks. Whether you are representing the buyer or seller, this is another opportunity for you to shine as a real estate professional. So the overall offer process with both parties is in this diagram that's up here on the screen for you. I got to move y'all again. Okay. So the buyer makes an offer. When the buyer makes an offer, the seller responds to the offer in one of three ways. They either accept it, reject it, or counter offer. Now, I teach this in licensing classes with Mosley. When your buyer, and this is just a little caveat, when your buyer makes an offer to a seller and the seller counters back, remember that is a complete rejection of the initial offer. And the counter offer is actually another offer entirely. Is everybody aware of that? Everybody knows that, okay? So the reason I state this right now is because I actually had somebody in Lynchburg make an offer on one of my listings and my client rejected it. It was a lowball offer in this market. My client rejected it, only been on the market for a day or two. In the meantime, he sends me another offer and says, this is my client's highest and best. My client still rejected it. A few days later, we got another contract that was a great price. However, it was subject to sale of a property. But that property was likely going to sell quick as well. Long story short, this other guy who made the offer originally came to me and said, are you kidding me? You accepted an offer over my clients that was subject to sale? I said, yes, my client did. I presented them all, and this is what he chose. He was ugly and hateful. I said, listen, it's subject to sale. You have every right to have your client make them another offer while it's still subject to sale. He came back at me with the same original offer that he had made several days before that my client rejected. He didn't even change the dates on it. He didn't rewrite it and have his client sign it again. It was the same signature, same date, everything. And so I said, my client is rejecting the offer again, and he was not nice about it. And so I had to point out, this is an old offer that once it was rejected, no longer became an offer. If you want to make, if your client wants to make an offer, then you need to rewrite an offer and make an offer. And they never did. So that's my soapbox, is to remember that once your client, your buyer, makes an offer to a seller and the seller counters, the original offer is no longer on the table, it's rejected. This counter offer replaced it. Does that make sense? Okay. So if they accept the offer as written, then begins the contract to close process. Now, some people hire people to do this for them. Some people get other agents to do it for them. Some people choose to do it themselves. It's a long process. It could turn your hair gray. My hairdresser can attest to that for you. This is not natural. I'm just saying. Hit me up in about a week or two and you'll see the natural. But the contract to close process is where all the fun begins. Now, a counter offer brings in more negotiations. And so, you know, is there anybody here who's is new enough to never have made a sale yet? Anybody else? Vanessa?
I am, yeah.
Michelle? Anybody else? Okay. So the contract to close process, I'll go into it just a little bit here. When you get to everybody has accepted the offer and it's a ratified offer, meaning everybody has signed off on it, everybody agrees to the terms, et cetera, that's when you as the buyer's agent must ensure that the lender gets a copy of the contract, the title company gets a copy of the contract, the client, the buyer, gets a copy of the ratified contract, and that your loop in dotloop has the ratified offer in it, or the ratified contract. You also, what I do just to get in the habit is at that point, I go ahead and submit the loop for review as soon as possible. So I kind of have a process. Once everything is ratified and I've given everybody copies, then it is submitted for review at that moment. There is never left hanging. I don't think they've ever had to ask me to submit. Maybe one time they had to ask me to submit for review, but other than that, they always have my documents. Because once they review, once the powers that be review your contracts, if there's anything missing or misspelled or left off, you have time to get it fixed. You're not scrambling at the last second before closing to get everybody's signature and initials on a change. So if they counter offer, the negotiations start again. That means that a seller is not accepting the buyer's offer for one reason or another, good or bad. Maybe it's the date of closing. Maybe it's the buyer asked that the seller pay their closing costs and they don't want to do that. Maybe it's a lowball offer. Maybe there's more than one offer on the table. And sometimes, by the way, especially in this market, if you have more than one offer on the table, you'll likely hear the listing agent or the seller's agent say, we have multiple offers, come back with your highest and best. And at that point, you go back to your buyer and you say, Mr. Buyer, I've been notified that there are 3 additional offers. They're going to be reviewing the offers all at once tonight at 8 p.m. We need to come back with our highest and best. Is the offer that you already wrote up with me, is that your highest and best, or do you want to make any changes? They might ask you for recommendations. They might say, well, I'm willing to go up in price, but I still want them to pay closing costs. Even if you don't like the offer, if you know in your heart of hearts that the seller is not going to accept your client's offer, it has to be an offer that they're comfortable with. Remember, they're buying the house, you're not. Or as I like to say, congratulations, you're buying a mortgage. They're the ones paying the mortgage. So our job is to present every offer, whether we like it or not, to the seller in a timely manner. And that's what we're going to do, regardless as to how many offers are on the table. Now, if you have a seller that rejects the offer, possibly it has something to do with being offended. I've run into that where sellers can get offended by a buyer's offer. If they think it's a ridiculous offer, they just won't counter. They might just say no. Or it might be that a seller needs what they're asking for. They can't accept anything less, and so they just say no. Or it might be that they're expecting multiple offers, and so it's early in the game and they know more are coming, so they say no to yours. Okay. Remember, it's not personal. I cannot stress that enough. We don't know what kind of pressure a seller is under. We don't know if he's got what kind of bills he's got to pay off with that house. We don't know if there's medical issues and he's got to move out of state to take care of mama, so he needs the house to sell. We don't know because we don't represent that seller. So you just need to understand that it's not personal, that it's the offer that was made does not meet the buyer's need for one reason or another. And it doesn't mean that your buyer can't come back with a different offer. It just means that your buyer needs to come back with a better offer. He's not even going to counter it, just rewrite one. Okay, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions? Okay, let's move forward.
I have a question.
Sure.
I wrote my first offer yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thanks. They denied it.
Oh.
But it was a condo, and we wrote the offer for full price because we knew that someone else was making an offer.
Okay.
They accepted the other offer because it was all cash.
Okay.
What happens if they choose one offer over yours, but something happens? Can they come back and say, we're going to take it, or do you have to do a whole new one?
No, once they reject the offer, it's rejected.
Okay.
So if they come back at you and say, hey, this offer fell through, we would like to entertain yours again, then that's when you say, I will have it in your email within the hour. And go back to the drawing board and get new signatures, because once it was rejected, it's rejected. Okay, so you have to do a new offer. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do a new exclusive right to represent and all these addendums they probably already signed. the residential property disclosure and all that stuff, just reuse those. But, you know, you might want to have them at least re-sign the purchase agreement, even if they're not making any changes, because it has, if they're signing through Dotloop, it has a time stamp on it and a date stamp on there.
Mhm.
So that's what I would do.
Okay.
Well, congratulations. It was a learning experience, and it wasn't because of anything you did. It was a cash offer. I mean, you know, they've been dumb not to take a all cash offer.
Mhm.
So, all right. Any other questions? So this right here, this, and I'm doing this with my hands like you all can see what I'm doing on the screen. This right here is the negotiation process. This is where your negotiating skills come into play. This is where you need to know how to negotiate for the best interest of your client. This is also where you need to exercise a little patience. Man, I hate that word. Does everybody else hate that word too? Patience. That is one thing as a realtor they don't teach you is patience, because I have none. When they had that line where they were giving out patience, I just skipped right through and said, meh, I don't need any. But you got to have patience when you're doing offers. Okay, next page. So when you are representing the buyer, once the buyer finds the property that they want to purchase, there's 3 action steps that you need to take. First of all, before we get into that, do you all wait until you have an offer to write before you do the exclusive right to represent for your buyers? Or do you like to write them when you have the first meeting with them? Anybody want to wait?
I usually do mine with the, you know, with presenting an offer in there, unless it's somebody that I've shown property after property, and you know, then I'm like, let's go ahead and get this, because this is legally what we're supposed to do.
Yes, absolutely. My advice for doing that is just like what Trey said. If it's somebody I know, I've worked with for a while, I'm not concerned about them, their family, they're my BFF, whatever the case is, then I would wait until, I'm not going to say until you sign this, I'm not taking you out. I don't do that. But some people will will have clients, new clients especially, meet at the office first, talk about representation, talk about agency agreements, and then have them sign before they go out and look at the first property. I have found that when I was a new agent and I first tried to do that, I scared people away. And I don't know if it was my approach, or, I mean, if I came across and said, you're going to sign, I don't know what I did. But what I've learned is I at least will meet them, you know, at the office, talk about what they want, what they're looking for, and we'll go look at a couple. And then before the next time we go out, I would like to have them sign. If it's somebody who's new, I would like to have them sign that I'm going to represent them as a buyer. Because the last thing you want to do is take out new people that you don't know and spend, you know, 4 weeks looking at 38 properties, and then for them to come back and say, I decided my cousin has gotten into real estate, so I'm going to use my cousin to buy a house now. Sorry about your luck. And what I have had to tell certain people is I am not a chauffeur. I don't know about y'all, but I don't run a chauffeur business, and I'm not a sightseeing tour guide. So this is my lifeline. This is my business. And so these contracts or these agreements help me to get paid for the services that I provide. So you should never be afraid to ask someone to sign an exclusive right to represent as a buyer, is what I'm trying to get at. But there are ways to do it without offending. Just that's another caveat. I'm just throwing out a whole bunch of caveats today. I apologize. Last week I was teaching licensing, and so my brain is still with licensing right now. And so I'm just all about throwing out stuff. Okay, so when you're representing the buyer, you need to prepare to write the offer. There is a checklist in Dotloop under the LAR buyers or LAR seller. I don't know. I think it's under buyers. And there's a checklist that you can use to help trigger what you're supposed to be signing with these clients. And so some of the things that, and we'll look at some here in just a few minutes, but some of the things that you'll look for, of course, is if you have not already signed it, you want them to sign the exclusive right to represent. The exclusive right to represent, by the way, means that you have the exclusive right to represent them as they buy real estate, okay, or as they buy a property. Now, when you're filling out the exclusive right to represent, there are some things you need to make sure you are wording appropriately. And once we get into the dot loop, I'll show you those. The next thing that you need to do when representing your buyer is write the actual offer. So this is a legal and binding document. This is a contract. This is something that as long as there are two individuals who have come to offer an acceptance, they're both sane and not insane. They're both over the age of 18, and there's nothing keeping them from following through at this point. This is a legal and binding document. So you need to make sure that when they sign it, they're signing it with the terms that they've requested that you fill it out with, okay? The correct price. One small typo in a number changes the entire offer price on an offer. So not only do you need to type it correctly, you need to proofread it before you send it to be signed. Are you going to make mistakes? Yep, it's okay. You just get them corrected, get them initialed, be as honest and forthcoming. You're only human, it happens. But you've got to try to be as thorough, as knowledgeable, and always go back and check your work. That's what we learned in school when we were in school. Check your work. And then you're going to present the offer to the listing agent. And you're going to do that in a timely manner. When somebody says, I want to make an offer, you should be jumping for joy. Woohoo, let's go. I'm going to write it up right now. And you're going to write it up as best as you can in a timely manner. And then you're going to send it over to your client or meet with your client, and however you choose to do it. And you're going to go over it with them, let them ask questions, make sure they understand everything, that they agree to anything, make any changes that they request that you make. They're going to sign everything, and you're going to bundle it in a nice little email, or if you choose to drive by and drop it off at their place, whatever the case may be, however you do it, you're going to present the offer to the listing agent. And at that point, that moment in time, you're going to do it in the nicest way possible, because not only do you want to be memorable, but you want your client's offer to take priority over everybody else's. So you're going to do it with a big, lovely smile on your face, and you're going to say, thank you for allowing me to show this property. My client is excited about this. They have a family, and this is the perfect school district, whatever the case may be. Here is their offer. I look forward to hearing from you as soon as possible. By the way, are there any other offers right now on the table? Try and get as much information as you can at that point. So those are the three things that you do when you are representing a buyer, in addition to driving them all over creation to show them property. I don't drive anybody, they follow me, but that's, by the way, that's a safety thing. Ladies and gentlemen, there was recently something in the news in Florida where a realtor was taken at gunpoint to a ATM machine, asked to withdraw $1,000 at gunpoint, and then driven back to where they came from, and the guy shot him in the chest and he died. So this is males and females. So as a caveat here, I'd never, ever, ever, unless it's my closest friend or family member, carry anybody in my car. Number one, it's a liability. What if you get into an accident and somebody's sue happy? You don't know these people, you just met them. Number two, again, you don't know them, you just met them, make them follow you. Number three, always either meet them at the office first face-to-face and get their personal information and a copy of their ID, or have them talk to, and this is my choice, have them talk to a lender first and get that pre-qual in your hand before you even go out on your first appointment with them. Because at least if something happens to you, at least that lender has spoken with them and gotten their personal information to check their credit. And okay, there's another soapbox. We're done with that one. Okay, before you write the offer, you need to work quickly, be ready to work quickly and efficiently, especially because this market right now, they're not going to wait for you. if it's a new listing and you're expecting the new listing to get a lot of attention and a lot of offers, I will usually tell the listing agent, I am writing you an offer right now and I plan to have it to you by this time this evening. Please wait until you get my offer if possible so you can review it with the others. So I let them know it's coming. Let them know. And then at that point they can say, well, I've had one say, well, we've already got a really good offer and I think they're going to accept it. So at that point, you don't have to waste your time. So when you tell them it's coming, they know it's coming, and you can hurry up and get it done and get it presented, and have yours included with everybody else's. So before you complete the offer itself, which of these steps do you think must be completed? All of them. You got to do them all. You can't skip anything to make an offer. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. That's a big thing you need to know. While it is legal to have verbal offers and counter offers, the saying goes, if it ain't in writing, it never happened. There's no proof of it. So never trust it. I actually lost out on a house that we did a verbal offer. When it was actually in the spring of this past year, we did a verbal offer on a house in Bedford. They accepted it verbally. He said, when can you have the written offer to me? I said, I'll have it to you by 4 p.m. At 3:50, I sent him a text and I said, it's in your email. He never responded. At 8:30 that night, after texting all day saying, did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? He said, we accepted another offer. I said, but wait a minute. You accepted my client's offer. We had a verbal agreement. You were just waiting for it in writing. And his exact words to me at that moment were, I didn't have anything in writing, even though he told me he would wait. So get it in writing. And then, yeah, okay, that's it. I'm going to the next page. We're not going to practice scripts yet. Don't get excited. Okay, so before you write the offer or make any offer, you want to make sure that you have what from a lender? A pre-qual, yes. You want a pre-qual or a pre-approval. Pre-approvals are better, but a pre-qual in this market is probably, generally speaking, what you're going to find more of, because everything moves so quickly. So you want to make sure you have that in hand, because if there are multiple offers, they're likely going to pick the one that has a that can show that they are, pre-qualified over somebody who is not pre-qualified.
Question.
You want, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What's the difference?
A pre-approval means that they've had a more extensive pull on their credit and looked at more numbers. I don't know, ask a lender what exactly they look at, but it's more in depth. When they're doing a pre-qual at the beginning, they're looking at their debt to income ratio. They're looking at their credit to see approximately what their credit score is. Have they ever purchased a home before? That kind of thing. And so they're saying, based on this information, they could probably get an FHA loan. Okay. It hasn't gone to underwriting yet. It hasn't been, nobody else has looked at it. They've just done kind of a soft pull on it. Once they have been approved, then they have been, yes, we will give them this loan. That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any kind of questions for any kind of money questions, I always refer my clients to a lender. Remember to stay in your lane with everything. You're not a title company, you're not an appraiser, and you're not a lender. So you're not an attorney. So any kind of questions that you're not sure of, be very open and honest with your clients, and then refer them to the appropriate people so that they can get actual answers and not actual answers. You can also work on doing a comparative market analysis for your buyers. In this market, you may not have time, but basically it's where you are going to educate them and inform them that other houses in this area have recently sold for this amount. This house is appropriately priced, or this house is underpriced, or this house is priced just at tax assessed value, you could be getting a deal or whatever the case may be. By showing them some comps and some other homes that have recently sold or some things that are pending, or showing them some things even that are still on the market. Though the things that are still on the market won't be used in an appraisal situation, you can give them kind of a snapshot, an idea of what things are priced at in that area that they're looking to buy. You can also pull the tax records for your buyers. Go on the GIS site and pull up the tax records. You'll see the tax assessed value. You'll be able to see on many sites, you'll be able to see the actual, what they pay in taxes per year. This is great for some areas. It's not so great in other areas where the taxes are higher. But you'll be able to see a history on some GISs. They'll show a history of purchases, when it was purchased, what they paid for it, how long they've had it. And then I always go back into the MLS system and see I look up the address to look for old listings to see what the condition of the pictures were back when it was last sold on the MLS. That way I can say, oh, look, this was bought 2 years ago and by these people according to the GIS, and looking at the old pictures versus when we went and took a tour of it, they've changed A, B, and C, or they've done this work to it, that type of thing. Because with the prices of houses being what they are right now, I've had a lot of buyers ask me, well, what have they done to it? They've only owned it for a couple of years. Have they done any work to it? And so it's always nice to be able to say, yes, they remodeled the kitchen, or these are new flooring. This is new flooring, or the roof was replaced, or whatever the case may be. Before you spend all that time preparing for an offer and writing an offer, just make sure it's still available, because not all agents update the MLS in a timely fashion. So don't spend all your time making an offer or writing an offer if you don't know that the property is still available. It could be pending and you just didn't know it. So even if it says vacant on the MLS, where you don't even have, where you're not really having to call a agent to make an appointment, you can still call them and say, I'm just checking to make sure it's still available. You don't have any offers on it before I go show it. So save yourself some time and headache. You're going to build rapport, gather as much information about the seller and the property as you can when you're talking to the other agent. You're going to ask the listing agents what's important to your seller. I had an agent ask me this one time of my seller, and I thought, well, that's the weirdest question I've ever been asked. But it makes total sense. Is price more important to your seller? Is closing date more important to your seller? What is important to your seller? Because you can write your offer if you know that the seller, it's a multiple offer situation, or you're moving really quickly, and you know what's important to the seller is a close to asking price, then that's how you can talk to your buyer. Listen, here's what the agent said is important. So what is the highest and best that you want to make, knowing that the list price is whatever it is. So you're going to kind of get as much information as possible. Find out what's important. Find out their motivation for moving. That's another big one. Are they moving for a job? Are they moving because of family? Are they moving because they're retired and want to go to Cabo San Lucas or wherever you go when you retire? I wouldn't know. I'll be working to pay off these degrees behind me until I'm 96. Anyway, find out the motivation for them selling. This also allows you to customize your buyer's offer, okay, to make it more appealing to the seller. Ask about the activity on the property. Is it getting a lot of showings? How many times has it been shown this week? How many times today? Are you expecting other offers? And then obtain, if you're going to write the offer, before you write the offer, ask for the disclosure statements. And usually, or sometimes they're attached to the doc box on the MLS, where you could just download them from there and drop them into Dotloop and get your people to sign. Sometimes though, they're not. Sometimes you have to ask them to email it to you. You never, ever, ever want to have a buyer sign the disclosures before a seller does, okay? Because the sellers are the ones making the disclosure. the residential property disclosure. They're signing it as a seller stating, I don't have any known knowledge of any material adverse facts about this property, but you, Mr. Buyer, are welcome to have a home inspection or a radon inspection or a mold inspection at your expense. I'm giving you that opportunity. You never want to sign a lead-based paint disclosure without a seller signing it first, saying that they don't have any knowledge of lead-based paint. Or if they do have knowledge of lead-based paint, you want to know that they have knowledge that can be tested, and you need to inform your buyers not to chew or lick the walls. I always tell my buyers that if it's a house built before 1978 and we have a lead-based paint disclosure that says the seller has no known knowledge, that doesn't mean it's not there. It means they don't know if there's any there. So I always inform them, please do not lick the walls. What else can I do? And we already talked about finding out if there's any other, been any other offers. Okay, then you're going to write the offer. Some agents choose to write a cover letter with their offer. Sometimes this may help in a multiple offer situation. I do not do that. I just will do that in a cover on the email. I might say, hey, my clients are very excited about the property. They cannot wait to move. They love the animals and the farmland or whatever. Just make it sound, you know, what they really like about the property, what drew them to the property. Sometimes, depending on the sellers, it makes a difference because they want to know that somebody's coming in that's going to love the property as much as they loved the property. That makes sense. So if you give them that information, then that makes your buyers look more attractive. Ensure your buyers know that all of the checks, make sure they understand the earnest money deposit. Make sure that they are ready to make sure your buyer is ready to make that deposit upon acceptance of the offer. Make sure that they get it to wherever it needs to be within a certain time frame. So we don't like to hold escrow at Keller Williams anymore. So chances are it's going to be your title company, whichever title company you use. My advice is to never touch the money. Don't drive it there for your client. Don't skip it across the street for your client with the check in hand going, I got something for you. Don't do any of that. You make the buyer take their own check to whoever is holding escrow, because the last thing you want is to lose your license or have it suspended or receive fines because you lost somebody else's money. Regardless if you meant to or not, that's the surefire way to get in trouble with the board. So don't do it. Don't touch it. So that's my other 2 cents. Let's see. If you're missing any documents in the loop, everything, the great thing about Keller Williams is that they have created loops that are easy to use. So if you go in and you create a loop for your buyer, you can click on LAR buyers loop and it'll pull up all the forms that you may need. There might be 1 or 2 missing out of that loop that is like an extra that you might need, but you can go back in there and find a template and download it. It's a very simple process. If you have trouble with .loop and you're not familiar with it, then you want to reach out to, I think, Shalaya or Crystal or one of the brokers, and they can help you navigate your way through .loop. If you are meeting with your clients to do the offer, you want to make sure you bring your laptop or your tablet. You can print out forms if you'd rather do it handwritten. The problem that I find with handwriting is that, number one, you want to do it in blue ink, not black, because it looks, when it's an original. Okay, if it's everything's written in black ink, then it looks like a copy. In blue ink, it's an original. However, then you have to go through the process of uploading it, scanning in a copy and uploading it to .loop, blah, blah, blah. Whereas you can just type it from .loop, email it to them for a signature. It comes right back to your .loop, boom, you save time and energy. So take the appropriate forms with you, take a buyer's packet with you, take your laptop or tablet with you, take your cell phone with you. Just be prepared. Have your mobile office with you when you're with clients. When your buyer makes an offer, they are selling themselves to the homeowner. So that's why I said you may want to do a cover letter or an email saying, this is about my people. Here they are. You don't want to send a family snapshot. You don't want to send their ages, dates of birth, and all that stuff. They don't care. But what they do want to know is who's going to love my property as much as I do. It also humanizes the offer. It lets you see them in a different light, because this is a very volatile and can be a very high strung transaction, depending on how it goes. There could be some freaking out. There could be some stress involved, and that's just on the realtors. That's not even on the buyers and sellers. So you want to humanize it and let them see the buyer as just another person who was looking to move and fell in love with their house as much as they did when they originally bought it. Then we already talked about creating your buyer's loop. And let's see. You can email the loop directly to your clients from .loop to sign, which we'll look at here in just a second. Any questions on that? Is everybody awake? Okay. Is anybody learning anything, or am I just talking? Tell me you learned something.
You're doing great.
You're doing fabulous.
Do you remember?
Yeah, Robin, you are doing a great class.
Well, I
Yeah, you're
just
doing a
want to
good
make
job.
thank you. I just want to make sure you're getting at least one thing, and that is don't touch the money. I don't care about anything else. Just don't touch the money. Okay.
Roanoke Market Center, you guys are using DocuSign, not .loop, right?
I think they've already switched over, or well, at Roanoke, they had just switched to DocuSign. Yes. Back when that whole thing with DocuSign coming on board and they were going to switch it over by a certain date, I think Roanoke was one of the first market centers to switch over.
Yeah, I don't think they use .loop.
But DocuSign is just as good as .loop. I have both of them. When I was in the Roanoke Market Center, I actually bought an account with .loop, and I decided to keep it up, and I have. And there has been times when a client has said, for some reason, I can't open the loop, or it won't come to my email, or whatever. I can't get it to work. So I have uploaded it to my OneDrive on my computer, and then I've uploaded it to DocuSign and got it signed that way. So, I mean, it's kind of handy to have. But the bad thing about DocuSign is it's very difficult for me right now. I can't go back in and find old loops that I did when I was with Roanoke. .loop is more of it keeps everything nice and neat in a nice little bundle. So you have all your documents and all your loops right there. It's really, yeah, that's what you want. All right. Let's see, I did that page. Here is a checklist for writing an offer. You're going to want to fill out the price and terms, and they're not your price and terms. It's not what I mean, they might ask you what your opinion is, but it's what they want to offer. It's the buyer's price and terms. You're going to go over the seller's disclosures and really tell them what their rights are. Remember, Virginia is a caveat emptor state, or a buyer beware state. The onus is on the buyer to determine that the house is in pretty good shape, that there's no material adverse facts about the property. However, that does not exclude a seller from being legally bound to disclose any known material facts. But the key word in there is known. They have to know about them to disclose them. You can't disclose what you don't know. And I don't know about y'all, but I do not climb through my crawl space in my attic and in between my walls on a daily basis to know what is growing in there, what is happening, if there's any leaks or anything. If there's no telltale signs, you just don't know. So make sure you go over those and make sure you find out. I always recommend a home inspection for a buyer. Always, always, always have a home inspection. And then you're going to talk about conveyances, what conveys with the property, what doesn't. Are all of the appliances going with the property? Are there some appliances that might be negotiable? Sometimes they don't offer the washer and dryer, but the buyer goes in there and goes, heck yeah, look at that. I need a new washer and dryer. If you want to negotiate the washer and dryer, just because it's not in the listing doesn't mean you can't ask for it. So you'll want to talk about anything that is in the listing that doesn't convey. So for example, there might be a freezer in the basement and the listing may say that the basement and the freezer does not convey with the property. So you want to make sure that they are aware this does not stay with the property. You want them to know that before they write the offer, not after they get into it, close on it and realize, where the heck did the freezer go? I thought they took the freezer. Okay, so make sure you go over that stuff. Earnest money, talk to them. Are earnest money deposits required? Does anybody want to take a stab at it?
No, they're not in Virginia.
No.
Correct. Earnest money deposits are not a requirement. They are, so the moral of the story is I never tell my buyers to outdo themselves on an earnest money deposit. It might be if they want to make one, which most of my people do, because it does add a little bit of leverage. It shows that they are financially invested in following through with the contract. Okay, it shows they really want this contract to the point that they have put money aside for it. I never talk them into more, depending on the price of the property, anywhere from $250 all the way up to $1,000 and never any more than that. I rarely tell them to offer $1,000. It has to be a really, really, really expensive house. Because it's just, lots of times I find with my sellers, it's not a big sticking point. I mean, they look at it and go, well, they could have put more money down, or, oh, look, they put $1,000. That's great. But it's not a necessity. It's not required. It's not a necessity. It's just, it gives them a little bit of leverage. So earnest money, does everybody know how to educate your buyers on what happens with their earnest money deposit? You should know what to tell them, because when you're talking to them about that, they're going to want to know. So the earnest money deposit sits in an escrow account until closing, or until something happens. If there's a fault, if somebody falls through, the contract doesn't go through, there's a termination of contract and everybody's released from it, everybody has signed and agreed, there's no more contract, then the earnest money deposit can be released back to either the buyer, or if the buyer breaches the contract, it can go to the seller. So it's important to talk to your buyers about breaching contract and how they could lose their earnest money deposit. But if everything goes through and it goes to closing, then the earnest money deposit is actually credited to the buyer at closing. For example, they're buying a house and they're borrowing $200,000, but they made a $500 earnest money deposit, then they're really only borrowing $199,500 because they've credited them that $500 earnest money deposit. So you let them know that it's a credit that they'll get at closing, or if something happens, as long as it's not a default on their behalf, and as long as everybody agrees to it, they can get their money back if the contract falls through. In this market, at the very bottom of contracts, you'll find a time for seller acceptance. This is a time is of the essence clause kind of thing. It's like, this offer is only good until 5 p.m. today. That is saying, excuse me, that is giving the seller until this time, the offer is good, so you better look at it now and accept it or don't, or counter. But at 5 o'clock, if we ain't heard from you, this is no longer a valid offer. This is sometimes good to use if you know that a house is getting a lot of attention and you know other offers are coming in and you want them to look at yours and yours alone. But it, again, is not necessary. Financing terms, you might want to write this down. On the contract, it will ask you the terms of financing, and it asks you to check which type of loan that they're getting. They're asking you how many points they're buying, what percentage of the loan is going to be financed, is it subject to financing, is it a cash contract? There's a whole section in the contract about that. Whatever you put in there, there's also an other section at the bottom of the contract, I think before the signature page or right above the signatures. And there's always a statement that I type into my offers. And the statement is that the purchaser reserves the right to change the terms of financing as long as it does not interfere with seller's net proceeds or closing date. That means that if for some reason they get halfway through it and realize FHA is better than USDA or vice versa, or whatever the case may be, they're going to get a better deal. They have the right to change it as long as it's not changing the closing date and it's not changing how much money the seller's going to walk away with.
Can you repeat that statement again?
Yep. Purchaser reserves the right to change financing terms as long as it does not interfere with seller's net proceeds or closing date.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That way, because once they get, at this point, your buyer is probably only pre-qualified, like we kind of talked about with Will. But if they get into it farther and they find out, that type of loan is probably not the best for them, there's something better for them. You want your client to go for what's best for them. So you want to be able to give them that ability to change those terms without having to rewrite a contract, renegotiate everything, because without it, if they change the terms of financing, they're in breach of contract if you don't have something in there. If you've checked all the right boxes saying they're going VHA, they're only financing 96.5%, the rest is a down payment, and they're buying 2 points or whatever the case may be, and for some reason that doesn't happen, technically they're in violation, they're in breach of the contract.
Hey, Robin,
Yes.
another good point. I'm glad you brought that up because, I mean, obviously it's going to help people that has never used it, but with the market the way it is, and you go to a house and maybe they weren't pre-qualified or they did a quick pre-qual so they could put offers in.
Yeah.
It could change between Saturday you showing them and Monday that lender goes, okay, you found a house out, that you can get a USDA and you don't have to put money down. So it can change.
Absolutely. And along with that, you can show, this is telling on myself, you can show a client so long to find a house that they don't like. I mean, that you're just showing them forever and a day that pre-qual is no longer good. It expired. The rate that they can't lock in. I've even had a closing be so delayed, and it wasn't any fault of us. It was the lending side of it. But it was so delayed that their lock-in rate, they had to pay $3,000 to relock it. So this kind of, in some instances, this benefits the buyer. I would always put in a statement that, listen, if something better comes along, my client has the right to change it. We're not going to mess with what we're giving you. We're not going to mess with the closing date. We just want to make sure they're getting the best loan package for them. So, okay. The pre-approval letter, we talked, the loan approval letter. So pre-approval and loan approval, on the contract, it will ask, there's a statement that says we will have loan approval on or about blank date, and you fill in the date. I always either use the same closing date or 30 days out from when we have a ratified contract. You don't know, you can say in 15 days we'll have loan approval, but stuff happens. I currently have, I don't know if you all have had this happen. I currently have 2 closings that were supposed to occur last week. On one end, I represent a buyer. A seller. On another end, I represent a seller, and this seller is buying this buyer's house. So on this house, I'm getting both sides. On this house, I'm only getting the seller side. Well, this seller cannot close on buying this house until his sale closes, because he needs the proceeds from this house to go to this house. Okay, so it's a domino. USDA, in their infinite wisdom, decided at some point that they were going to rehaul their entire system. And if lenders were not up to par and up to speed on what was going on, things fall through the wayside. Anyway, their old system was completely wiped clean. All of their records gone. So paperwork from things that were still outstanding disappeared and had to be resubmitted. This caused a huge uproar to the point where the client who was buying this house over here, he was USDA. His stuff got lost, so he could not close on this loan until his loan paperwork was resubmitted and he got reapproved. So he had to take early possession of this property so that the sale of his current house could close in time, right? He didn't want to jeopardize this sale. So this person had already moved out, so he got early possession. He's paying rent to this person until his loan can close. Well, in the meantime, I get a call from the buyer's agent for this house. USDA had problems. Uh-oh, can't close in time. So it's no fault. The moral of the story is there's no fault in there for the clients. And it's a cluster. And she's one of the agents texting me right now with stuff. I have no idea what she's saying because I'm talking to y'all. So I'm thinking, here we go again. It's a cluster and it's a domino thing, but it's no fault. It is not something that could have been foreseen or written into a contract to protect anybody. So you can put, yeah, I'll have loan approval in 30 days, but the moral of the story is you don't know when you're going to get loan approval. You get it when you get it. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. So for me, I like to put the date we will get approval is the date we close. So whatever projected closing date I use in a contract is the date that I generally put for when we'll get loan approval. Just a little caveat. Then your closing date. Make sure your closing date works for your buyers before you make the offer, and make sure it's appropriate for the type of loan that they are doing. If it's a government loan, you can do anywhere from 30 to 45 days. If it's a VA loan, anywhere from 45 to 60. I've been getting lucky with just doing 45 and pushing it. But under normal market circumstances, it may be 60 days. You're at the government's mercy, nothing you can do about it. Home warranty, you can review any home warranty considerations if they want to buy one, if there's one being offered. Repair limits on the contract. This is where the home warranty, the home inspection comes into play. If there are things found on the home inspection, when you're writing the offer, you're going to want to include, hey, if we find things on the home inspection, we want the seller to be responsible for up to $1,000, $1,500, $1,800, whatever dollars in repairs. So you're going to fill that in. There is a caveat in the contract that states if nothing has filled in, then it is perceived that the amount is $1,000. It's agreed upon. If you leave that line blank, it's assumed that it's going to be $1,000 is what the seller will be responsible for. It states that right there in the contract. The way I was taught to do contracts was ask for $1,800. Don't ask me why. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Depends on, you can walk in a house now and look and go, we're going to have some issues with that. That's going to be dinged. Oh Lord, there's mold. So you know, when you're showing the property, use your knowledge and you can say, maybe we should ask for a little more on this, or, and then, you know, you can negotiate it later. Or if you walk in and it's sparkling clean and you could lick the walls, then you might want to just ask for 1,000 or less. Any special clauses or contingencies, such as subject to sale, subject to consummation, subject to selling you my firstborn, subject to whatever the case may be, you know, if it's crazy enough and somebody asks for it, whatever. And then of course, if you want, then you include the cover letter as well. So there's a lot of things to consider, a lot of pieces and things that you're going to be filling out in the offer on behalf of the buyer, all of which the moral of the story is you're going to want to talk it out with your buyer. Another caveat real quick, I don't want to keep you all day, but oh gosh, I'm sorry. It's already been an hour and a half, y'all. My bad. Where was I going with this? Oh, something else that I put. I always put in the other column on the bottom of my contracts with regards to the home inspections that purchasers representative, purchasers and sellers understand that purchasers agent may not be present for inspections. I don't want to, you know, the known knowledge thing. If you have known knowledge, you must disclose. If you know this and you have to do this, I don't want to know. I want the home inspector to be there. They're the professional. I don't want to have anything to do with all that. And not only that is I don't have time to sit at a house for 4 hours while somebody crawls through the walls, looking at stuff that I don't know anything about. So I may go let them in and I may go, and then I talk to them afterwards, but I do not stay for the whole home inspection. That's up to you guys, how you choose to do it. But I always put on there that they agree and understand that I am not going to be there.
Can
So-
you repeat how you worded it?
Yep. I say sellers and purchasers understand that purchaser's agent may not be present for inspections. Now, if I feel I need to be there for some reason, or if a client says I really would feel better if you were there, then I will by all means go. But if I'm scheduling something 10 days out, I don't know what my schedule is 10 days out. I could be hit by a bus, God forbid, 10 days out. I try to cover all of my bases so that if I'm not there, it's not a big deal. Any questions on being a buyer? Okay. Let's represent sellers. I promise not to bore you guys to death. There are some scripts in here. Do you guys have copies of the scripts in your book? We're not going to read them together, but I would highly suggest that you go through and just kind of learn some ways to word things to your clients. Remember that when you're doing this, I know it can be nerve-wracking at times because you're dealing with like a lot of money and it's not your money. And this is like the most important financial investment that these people are going to make. Maybe they're a young couple, they've never bought before, they're scared to death, they don't know what anything means. You have to hold their hand through the entire thing, but it is really an honor. And so you owe to them certain responsibilities, and one is honesty. And so if you think if their offer is not going to be good enough, it is okay to say they've got multiple offers. I don't think that your offer is going to be strong enough to stand. Is there any wiggle room here? Or can we do this here? Can you forget the washer and dryer? You can do that, but you just have to learn to be professional and tactful by how you do things. Just remember, your job is to work for them. You represent the buyer. You are the agent for the buyer when you're representing a buyer. So now let's flip the switch and you're representing a seller, okay? By the way, can you represent both a buyer and a seller at the same time? Yes. Make sure you have those disclosures signed. Not only have you gotten approval by both parties verbally, but you've also presented them with the disclosures to get signed so that you have it in writing that they have agreed to you representing both. And at that point in time, you simply become a moderator. That's the safest way to say it. You can no longer give out. You can't go to your buyer and say, listen, I know the seller will take 10,000 less than the asking price. Okay, because that's, you can't do that. So, and you can't go to the seller and go, I know that the buyer was pre-approved for 40,000 more that he's offering you, so maybe you can counter offer it. That you can't do it. So at that point you become a mediator. It's a very fine line, so just be very careful. Okay, so we're not going to do the calling because I keep running my mouth. We're going to represent some sellers here. So when a buyer makes an offer on your client's property, there are 4 actions that you will take. You're going to receive the offer. You're going to gather the information about the buyer the same way you did about the seller when you represented a buyer. You're going to do the same thing when you represent the seller about the buyer. Is your buyer pre-qualified? Can you send me a letter? When are they looking to move? Who are they? Are they new to the area? Just get as much information as you can. And then you're going to present the offer to your client, and then you're going to respond in a timely manner. Now, is it legal or possible that if you think an offer is not worthy, that you don't present that? Correct. All offers, as silly or dumb as you think they are, must be presented. So if you are in a multiple offer situation, be prepared to discuss every single offer, weigh the pros and cons of every single offer, and give your opinion on, and your professional opinion on how to respond to the offers. Can you counter offer with more than one offer at a time? Anybody? I
What
can
do you
only
mean,
see six
Robin?
of.
What do you mean?
If you have multiple offers, can you make it as a seller? Can you counter offer more than one offer at a time?
Well, I would say yes, because you can ask, give your best and final.
No. Here's why, but I know what you're thinking.
Yep.
If you remember, when you get an offer in to a buyer and they counter, that original offer is no longer an offer. You cannot make an offer to multiple people. What if multiple people responded and said, yes, you've effectively sold your house to two different people? See what I'm saying? So
So you're talking about after you do the best and final.
I'm talking about in any situation as a seller, if you get two offers, you cannot respond to one and say, I don't know, but I'll sell it to you for for 200,000. No, but I'll sell it to you for 210,000. And they both come back and said, great, we're done. We accept. You've sold your house to two different people. So the correct way to do that is to tell everybody, listen, I have multiple offers on the table. We're going to review them. If this is not your buyer's highest and best, get your buyer's highest and best offers to me by 8 p.m. and I will present them all at 9 o'clock tonight, and we will get back to you with one at that point. So that puts the responsibility in the buyer's hands to come back with their highest and best. It takes the seller out of negotiating, and he can sit down and look at all of the highest and best that came through, weigh them at the same time to figure out which one is the best. Maybe there's one at that time that he thinks, okay, this is kind of like what you were saying, Michelle. This one's a cash offer. It's full price cash offer. I would rather negotiate with this person instead of those five. And you can negotiate back with just the one. Does that make sense? Because you know they're all the highest and best, but just because they tell you it's the highest and best doesn't mean you can't ask for more. Right? So, okay. So those are your four. You receive, you gather, you present, and you respond. I don't even know what slide number I'm on. I haven't really been keeping up with it, so I don't even know if we're like all at the same place or not. When you receive the offer, the first thing you're going to do is thank the buyer's agent. If you know or even think that there may be other offers coming in, you tell the buyer at that time. This will also create a sense of urgency. If you've been a buyer's agent on that end and you know, oh gosh, there's more offers. What am I going to do? I got to get a highest and best. Oh no, we're going to be sitting on pins and needles for the next 12 hours while we wait for somebody to respond. Oh no, I can't eat. I'm going to throw up. Yeah, so it creates the urgency. And then you're going to review the offer for accuracy and completeness. You get the offer, make sure everything is filled in. They've given you the date of closing, who's buying it, their financing. Oh, look, here's their pre-qual letter or their pre-approval letter. They don't want any closing costs. Woohoo. Or they want closing costs. What? Better be a good price if they're asking for closing costs. You know what they always say. I'm not willing to put out the money if they ain't paying, whatever. So then you have that talk. But you're looking at it, you're going over it to make sure that you have all of the information, all of the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And then when you're talking to the buyer's agent, there's a couple of things that you can ask. And I hope this is in your book. It might be on page 19. I don't know if we're on the same page or not together, but it's how long has the buyer been looking? Have they been pre-approved by a lender? Do they have to sell anything first? Are they from out of town? Why are they moving here? Why did they select this property? What they love about it? How did they come up with their purchase price or their offer price? And have they made offers on other properties? And if so, what happened? So sometimes it's good to say, you know, I actually had one come to me recently. out of the scenario where I said I had these two, this buyer's agent said, listen, my people have been outbid on homes and they decided not to look anymore until this one came on the market. They're distraught. They're not even sure that they're gonna, that they want to even try to make an offer if you tell me that there's multiple offers on the table. I said, send me your offer. I didn't give her any information. I said, send me your offer. But she did ask, are there how many people have looked at it? Is it getting a lot of attention? Why are your people moving? And so I asked her some of the same questions. Are your people pre-qualified? What type of loan are they going to be using? Why have they been outbid on so many properties? I want to know, is it just the market or is it because they're lowballing everybody? What's the problem? Or in the words of my best friend, what the problem be? So you want to find out what the problem be. All right. The more you know about the buyer, the better prepared you are and your seller will be to respond. If necessary to counteroffer, the goal is to respond to the buyer with a high likelihood of knowing how that response will be taken. Okay. Sometimes when your seller is unrealistic, and sometimes that your seller really does want to negotiate with somebody. It just depends on the seller. You can tell by their offer, by their language. If they're huffing and puffing, you can kind of read. You can read a room. You can read them. All right, so there is a checklist for reviewing an offer. First, you want to make sure that the address on page 1 is the correct address of the house. This is important because it also asks for the legal, like lot, block, description, whatever. You can get that off of a listing or off of the GIS or any tax records that they have. You can go to the county and have them look it up, however you feel you need to do it. We're not doing scripts yet. Anyway, I just want to make sure I was on the right place. But make sure that it is correct, that they're making an offer on the correct property. You want to look at the price, make sure that the offer falls in the range of the seller's expectations. Look for the earnest money deposit. How much? Do they have money for a down payment? Are they financing 100%? Is there a time for acceptance? Time is of the essence clause at the bottom. This is only good till 5 o'clock. You want to know that in advance quickly to know how quickly you need to call or text or meet with your client. Verify the pre-approval or pre-qual letter. You'll want to look at the loan approval date. Again, I don't pay much attention to it. As long as they get approved by closing date, I don't really care. Some people say, no, I want to know in advance. I don't want to string my sellers along if it's going to take 60 days to get loan approval. And again, my response to that is we're not lenders. We don't have control over the lending process and things happen. So financing terms, you want to make sure they're agreeable to the seller. Make sure the closing date is agreeable with the seller. Do they need to move sooner? Can they wait? Can they string it out a little bit? Can we do a lease back? Can we look at the different scenarios that are possible if the closing date doesn't meet your seller's expectations? Home warranty, is the buyer asking for a home warranty? Are they asking for additional appliances that we didn't already convey in the listing? What repairs are they requesting? Any repairs in advance? If you walk through a house to show it and you come across and you see that a window is cracked, you can ask for repairs in the actual contract when you present the offer to a seller. So if there's any repairs, you know that they're asking, they want the windows replaced, or they want the carpet replaced, or they want the wood flooring repaired where there's some buckling or whatever. You want to let your client know that. Look for special contingencies, like they're asking for closing costs be paid. They're asking for, I don't know, weirder thing. They want the outbuilding. They want the storage building out back to stay, but they want it moved over 10 feet. Or weird things will happen. As long as you're a realtor, it can happen. I can tell you some stories. Actually, I think the whole office could tell you stories of one closing that I had because another agent with Keller Williams was on the seller side, and apparently my buyer's husband was a drug addict and we didn't know it, but the paraphernalia was left out during showings and things. And he opened the door in his underwear and his Chuck Taylors one day. Anyway, that got around really quick. But things will happen and weirder things will be asked for. So I can't really cover it all right now. Homeowners Association. Remember, if you're dealing with a seller who lives within a homeowner association, condominium owners association, any kind of association, that must be disclosed. How much they pay on a monthly or a yearly basis must be disclosed. And as a seller is responsible for producing documents for a buyer after they get into a ratified contract. So you want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date documentation, the HOA, the bylaws, any financials, et cetera, that must be included. Make sure you have those to present to a buyer. Possession date, if they want to take possession sooner than closing, sometimes they'll ask for that. We want early possession. You just want to review all of those things. All of those things represent the entire offer. An offer does not consist of the money and the closing date and the financing. That's not an offer. That's part of an offer, but it's not a full offer. Everything that is written on those pages is the offer. All 200, feels like 200 pages that you fill out of a contract represents the offer. All terms must be filled in. So you need to make sure that you verify that everything is filled in, because if it ain't in writing, it didn't happen. And especially coming from the buyer's agent side of it, if you make an offer and you forget to ask for something and you don't realize it, but then the seller accepts your offer and it's signed and everybody's good with that, whoops, then you have to go back and say, we made a mistake. I am so sorry. But at that point, the seller doesn't have to, accept your maybe you forgot to ask for closing costs. Ooh, that's a big one. That hurts. And then to have to go back and say, ooh, we made a big, huge error. I screwed up. I'm so sorry. Anyway, that's another class. Okay, any questions on how to review an offer? No? Okay. Okay, so once you receive the offer from the buyer's agent, you've reviewed the offer, there's no questions or surprises, then you go back and present it to your client cleanly as possible. First, call them and let them know you have an offer and tell them of the offer. The first thing they want to know is how much. Everybody wants to know. The world wants to know how much you're going to pay me for my house. And then everything else kind of comes after it. But that's the most important thing. So chances are they're going to ask you on the phone, what's the offer price and when are we closing? And at that point, you just ask them if they have time to talk. What you don't want to do is rush through it. If you're talking on the phone, sometimes they could be at work. Say, is there a better time when you could call me back? Can you call me back within the next hour and give me, 15 minutes of your attention so we can go over this? Because you don't want to make any mistakes and you want to make sure that they're clear on everything to see if they want to counter offer. Lots of times it's easier to counter back and forth if you think it's going to go like ping pong. It's easier to do it verbally until you come to a meeting of the minds. However, if it isn't in writing, it never happens. So you take that chance. But more times than not, that's what I do is once we get an offer going, me and the other agent will say, hey, do you want to do this verbally until we come to a meeting of the minds? And if everybody agrees, then I'll usually do it. Especially if I know the agent. Like if I don't know the agent, I may be a little less likely to do it after what I went through. But if I know Michelle, why are you laughing at me? Is it funny? Tell us a joke. Your face is so red. What are you doing?
It wasn't you.
Okay.
It wasn't you, Robin.
Okay.
It was something else.
Okay. Was it funny though? Whatever it was?
It was.
Good. Everybody needs a laugh.
That's why you love Friends, Robin.
Right? And fishing. Friends and fishing. Especially friends that take you fishing. I'm just saying. Something to think about. Okay. So if possible, present the offer to your client in person, take your laptop when you meet them, go through it on your computer. If it was sent to you electronically, step by step, line by line. If you're not meeting with them up front, if they're not, excuse me, in an area where you can do that, if they live far away, you can talk to them on the phone, do a Zoom, share your screen, go through it with them, but you want to make sure they have a very good understanding of what they're about to sign or what they're about to counter. Keep your tone of the conversation positive. Do not criticize the buyer. Do not criticize the buyer's agent. Do not criticize the company that they represent, and do not criticize the offer. Much like appraisers, everyone has an opinion. I think appraisers all have opinions. You can get 5 appraisers to go look at one house and you'll get 5 different appraisal amounts. It drives me bananas. In real estate, your opinion, there are certain times for your opinion, and most of the time you don't need to have one. So just keep your opinions to yourself and give them the information. Explain the offer, discuss the days on the market, the number of showings that they had, do an updated CMA to show whether or not this is a good offer or a bad offer. This is if you have time and you don't have 25 offers, by the way. If you have time to pull up and say, listen, this is what these are selling for. I know we listed your house at this price. However, the market has changed. Your house has been on the market for 90 days. Nobody's looking at it. House down the street just went under contract or just sold for $15,000 less than what we had it listed for originally. You probably shouldn't, look at this offer seriously. So use a CMA, an updated CMA, to help them see where the offer is a good offer or not a good offer. When they reach a decision, you need to inform the seller of how things are going to proceed. So first they accept the offer if they decide to accept it, or if they counter offer, you explain the process. Okay, well, I'm gonna make these changes. I'm gonna get you to initial decide every change that I make. I'm going to send it through to the buyer's agent, let them know it's coming, let them know that we're counter offering. We've changed A, B, and C terms. And once I get their reply, I will let you know as soon as possible. And if the sellers reject the offer because it's a laughable offer to them for some reason, then I simply let them know, okay, I will let the buyer's agent know that you're rejecting their offer. I try as a as a listing agent or seller's agent, I try not to encourage a seller to just completely reject an offer. Because anything can be saved, possibly. This buyer is a ready, willing, and able buyer. Now, their idea of purchase price may be laughable, but that doesn't mean that they weren't approved for more and they're just trying to see how low they can go. So I just try to get a seller to understand, this is them testing the waters. They probably, can go higher. So why don't we go back and at least counter offer back at, 1,000 less or 2,000 less to see if they inch their way up. Because at that point, if they respond back, then this is a valid buyer. This is somebody who's willing to negotiate. If they just blow people off and reject offers, they could be letting eventually a full price offer go. You don't know. Does that make sense? Just because somebody starts really low and offensive doesn't mean that that's as high as they're willing to go. Unless it's this market. That's another story. Okay. So there are some scripts, role play scripts for when you're representing and sellers and presenting offers in your book. I would, again, highly suggest that you have a partner that you feel comfortable working with, that you set time twice a week to reach out and just take 20 minutes and each of you run through a script and present objections to each other so that you know how to handle objections, excuse me. So I would highly recommend that you at least do that, guys. Being a realtor, every single deal that you do is going to be unique. Real estate is unique. No 2 pieces of property are alike. No 2 deals are going to be alike. There's always going to be something different. So you have to know, you have to be versatile. You have to be prepared for anything. And you just have to be willing to hold it in and cry on your pillow when you get home at night where nobody can see you. So I say that in all humor, but you've got to learn how to handle objections. You've got to learn how to appropriately negotiate on behalf of your client. And you've got to make it your life's goal to put your client's interests above your own in every deal, to make it a win-win for everyone. Okay, let's see. One more thing, and then I will let you guys, I think it's one more thing. I don't know. I don't even know what page I'm on. Hold on. Hold on. Talk too much. Y'all notice that? Let's work the offer, y'all. Go to page 25. So once your clients have made a decision on how to proceed based on the offer, and you you respond to the buyer's agent, you are going to notify that agent about the decision. We're not working the offer. Anyway, if the buyer accepts the counter offer, then the buyer again has to sign and initial all of the changes that you sent them. So it's going to be a lot of signing, a lot of initialing. That's why if it's a ping pong scenario going back and forth, sometimes it's easier to just do it verbally till you have a meeting of the minds, and then there's the contract is not tore up with a million signatures and initials. Once both parties have signed the contract, you got it, they've got copies, the earnest money deposit check is deposited where it needs to be, then, and it says the buyer's agent may deliver the earnest money check to the closing company. What did I say? Don't touch the money. I'm telling you. CYA, always. Make sure with the team leader to determine how earnest money deposits are handled in your area. And Keller Williams has recently said we no longer will be holding earnest money. So it will need to go to an attorney's office or a title company or whoever's doing the closing for you to hold the earnest money until the contract is completed or until it terminates. So there are some scripts in there for counter offering, so you can read through those as well. Lots of times you'll get agents that they'll call you back and go, hey, so your buyer's offer was really low, and so they need to come up a little bit. So my seller is counter offering at this. There's little jabs and things that, you know, you're hearing the digs, you're taking the hits. Again, it's not personal. Don't let it get to you, because a lot is being said in those jabs and digs. If she's saying your offer is really low, but you think that the offer is spot on with what the market says the price is worth, then maybe the seller is not willing to negotiate a whole lot. Okay, maybe they have unrealistic expectations. So if your buyer chooses to counter back, maybe you don't go at full, maybe you don't accept the seller's counter offer. You go back maybe a little bit higher and a little bit higher, a little bit higher. Just remember that your goal is to represent your client's best interests and to read into what you can, whatever information is being given, regardless of which side of the aisle you are representing. Any questions on counter offering? No? Okay. Always use positive negotiations. Positive negotiations. Again, you are establishing rapport with other agents. What is it? One of the bold, has anybody taken bold in here besides me? No? Okay.
I took bold last year, Robin.
I knew you were in my class. Michelle, were you in bold?
I was, sorry, I had to go off the screen for a second. Yeah, I've taken 3 of them.
Okay, all right. I knew somebody else had been in bold.
Yep.
So you teach people how to treat you. You teach people how to speak to you. If you want respect, you give respect first. If you want to be professional, you want to be treated professionally, you present professionally and you treat others professionally. It's just like you learned in kindergarten, but the same holds true in negotiating contracts. Professionalism goes a long way, and building rapport goes a long way as well. Will you have moments where you're going to lose your mind? Absolutely. But you just have to bring yourself back down. You have to have a woosah and realize again that it is not personal. It is, and that's what I have to tell myself. That's why I keep saying it to you. It is not personal. It is so not personal. You're not buying this house. You're not selling this house. It is not personal. All right. Let's end with this. I think we're ending with this. I don't know. So the customer experience. By the way, everybody knows the difference between a client and a customer. Everybody you come in contact with, you think of as your customer. Okay, everybody. Your client becomes a client once they sign an agency agreement with you. Before that, they are a customer. And customers and clients both are should be treated both with respect and honesty, and confidentiality needs to be. There's ministerial aspects of your job that you might do for a customer that may not be expected of you, but you do it anyway. So what's important is your customer's experience, because what happens if you have a happy customer? They refer, they become clients, they become repeat clients. So your customer experience is essential. And if you're representing a buyer, guess what? Your seller is a customer. They want to know, or they're going to know, how you handled the selling of their house with your client. They're going to know whether it was a good experience, whether you brought a lot of drama and your client brought a lot of drama. Did you know what you were doing? Was things done in a timely manner? Did money get where it needed to be in a timely manner? So they're going to know. So that's why it has to be a win-win for everybody. Recognizing that customers come first is among Keller Williams' 9 core beliefs of the Y4C2Ts. This is a belief system that guides the way Keller Williams associates treat each other and their customers. Not only each other, but other agents that you work with, because you're going to work with them all. Place a strong emphasis on setting a foundation for a win-win negotiation and subsequent closing. My favorite thing to do is when another agent at the end of a closing says, I have really enjoyed working with you, or well done, this has been a smooth transaction, thank you. Or I appreciate your willingness to go above and beyond in this. Those words from your colleagues are almost as good as the words coming from your clients. And there is one of my favorite agents to work with is not with Keller Williams, with another company. And the experience I had working with him has made me give him excellent ratings online. When social media posts have come up about him, I have written under there, he's your guy, and supported his business. Because what we don't want to do is, if you find happiness in somebody else's demise or their business not succeeding, then there's a problem, and the problem is with you. We have to uplift each other. We're building each other up. We want people to use realtors, not be scared of realtors. We want people to feel that the experience has been beneficial to them, that they would come back to us. And so you have got to create a win-win. You've got to create a positive experience for everybody. And the way that you do this is the way that Keller Williams does this is with the Y4C2Ts. Win-win or no deal. We've talked about that. Integrity, always do the right thing. Customers always come first. That means customers or clients. Commitment in all things that you do. Communicate. Even when you're not sure whether you need to communicate it, always communicate it. But seek first to understand. Do not jump to conclusions. Do not go to the negative. Don't do like I do and have a woe is me, and then it turns out all you need to do is go fishing. Don't look at the worst and then hope that it gets better. Work it out. Problem solve. That's not only are you a negotiator and a marriage maker, but you're a problem solver. That is in your job description. Be creative. Ideas before results. Teamwork. Together, everyone achieves more. That's team. There's no I in team. And trust. It starts with honesty. Success results through people. If you don't have clients, if you don't have customers, you do not lead gen and don't have a pipeline, and you do not have a client database, you cannot have success because you ain't got no people. So I hope that you see why it's so necessary and important that you're working your pipeline, you're working your database, you're sending out 10 cards. They're not telling you this to pluck your nerves and give you an assignment to do. They're telling you this to help you build a successful business with Keller Williams, and that's the goal. Okay, so an action plan. So today we talked about presenting from representing a buyer in a transaction, representing a seller in a transaction. We talked about negotiations. We talked about your customer's experience and putting it all first. So your action this week, I don't know if we're on the same page, but I have it on page 29. Oh, let me read you this from Mo Anderson first. So Mo Anderson is our vice chairman of the board. One of the most important fundamentals in business, as well as in one's personal life, is the decision to not only make commitments, but to keep them. When you're writing down that you're going to lead gen from 8 to 10 every morning, that's a commitment. Keep it. If it's not in your calendar, it doesn't happen. So put everything in your calendar. Okay, so this week, or your action plans to take away from today, look in the dot loop and review the documents. I would print out, we didn't get to do that today because I talked too much, but I would print out, go into dot loop and create a sample loop, which I did. Hold on, let me show you what I did. I'm gonna take off the screen share. How do I do that? Go to new share. Yep, that's how I do it. It's not up there, so never mind. So I went into dot loop and I created a sample loop. I named it sample loop, and in it I created an LAR buyer's loop. I just uploaded all those LAR forms. I would go in there if you haven't used them yet and print them all out and highlight all of the blanks and take what you learned today and make a sample so that you can follow when you get your first deal. So you'll be prepared to fill that out and fill it out thoroughly. I am always willing to help answer any questions. I am part of the ALC committee for the growth and development of new agents for this year. So if you have questions, I can give you my phone number. You can text me or call me. I always tell people, don't call me before 8 because I ain't had my coffee and I don't care. And don't call me after 8 because I've had my nighttime meds and I don't care then either. My number, if you have any questions, again, call your whoever. I'm sure you have somebody that you trust more than me, that's fine, but I will be available. My number is 540-588-0243, and my name is Robin. Feel free to call me and I'll be happy to help you. I have people, I am very familiar with the Roanoke contracts, and I've taught a contracts class for Roanoke. I have people that call me all the time that say, I'm doing an offer in Roanoke, help me, I don't know what I'm missing. So I'm happy to help you with that as well. Let's see, Shalaya, did I do everything? Am I missing anything? Oh, wait, I have to give homework, don't I? Okay, so for your next class, let me give you some homeworks. You got to do your daily 10-4s. Put it on your calendar. Do it to it, do it to it. Hold on, let me see. Oh, it didn't. I guess that's my last. It is. Oh. Prepare for your next class. We already did that. I guess we're at the end. So let me give you your homework. Your daily 10-4s. Set time with a partner and practice your scripts. Watch negotiations. It's 27 to 30 minutes long. You're going to watch that to help you get a little more knowledge on negotiating a contract. Get acquainted with common negotiation issues. There are some scripts that you can use, or you can download from Ignite on KW Connect, the script book, and there's some scripts in there you can follow. Grow your database, y'all. That's a no-brainer. Grow your database every stinking day. Even if you get a no today, it doesn't mean you won't, get a yes later on. It doesn't mean you have the right to call them and bug them to death, because there are do not call laws. You can get in a lot of trouble, but they can't fault you for saying, I just want to see how you're doing. I see you on Facebook. How are your kiddos? Whatever the case may be. By the way, a lot of people don't like social media, but social media is where it's at right now, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or whatever you're on. I post a lot on there, and I usually post either real estate or recipes because my kids are on there, and so I have to be nice. I don't want them to see their mom being ugly. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't be ugly anyway. Well, I might. But I've gotten a lot of business through Facebook. So some people laugh at me and go, I don't know how you do that. I can't stand being on Facebook. Well, that's fine because I have gotten clients there. Your loss is my gain. So I would highly suggest that you figure out a way to work social media to help you when you're generating leads for your database. So whether it's posting once a week, once a day, once a month, something of value, that might be the way to go, folks. Okay, that's all I have. Shalaya, did I do okay? Anything else I need to share?
I think you did a great job, Robin.
All right, I was looking at some of these papers in the back. I didn't know. Achievements of the week, do I have to do that?
No, you're fine.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all I got, folks. It was good to see your happy little faces again.
Good job,
Thank you,
Robin.
Robin. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
Have
job.
a great week.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too. I'm gonna see ya.
See you guys.
Bye.